These should be pretty simple to do. It's just a matter of fly cutting off on both sides, getting it to a certain thickness, cutting it in half, bolting them together, boring these holes, and making 2 plates. They will then go on there, and then I can start piecing everything together, getting dimensions established, and then finally at the end I'll know the real dimensions of the bronze bushes that are going to go in there. It's going to be a bronze bush that's 16mm to fit in there, 19mm to fit in that hole when it exists. But how thick do I need to make it? How thick and how long? This is all a tale of half finishing parts until you get things established, and then you can move on to the next one or finish the part that was half finished. This is supposed to be 3/8 of an inch thick, which is 9.5mm roughly, but it's closer on 11.5. So I'll aim to get this 10mm thick. Note of that on the drawing, yeah. Flat on one side. This is not the best way to clamp this, but I could drill and tap holes in this and hold it from underneath, but it's just too much messing around, and I don't want to interfere with the holes that I need to drill in it eventually anyway. So clamping it like this end is going to act like a bit of a springboard, but it's the way I'm going to do it. The cutter's only going to reach up to this blue line, which is the parting line to cut the 2 pieces in half. So it'll be a matter of facing this half off and then moving all the clamps over to the other side to clamp down that side, taking the same amount off the other end. This cross here is the thinnest part of the casting, so if I can clear that, then hopefully it's going to clear all the rest of it. The reason we're putting 3 clamps on is that when you remove 1 clamp to move it, you've still got 2 clamps holding it down. If you only had 2 clamps on here, you remove 1 clamp, there's a danger it'll pivot on the 1 remaining. If you leave 2 clamps left there, it should hold it in the same place. I've scooped this round by hand so that it doesn't take that big gouge out when it first starts up. I've scratched it onto this blue line so I know that it's not going to exceed this blue line into the other part. Time to go. Yeah, there was a tiny bit of contact there on the back cut, meaning that you can hear it springing up like a springboard. Never mind, when I turn it over I'll be able to flatten it out again to compensate for that. So 1 clamp at a time, move the clamps. Right, let's see if this jumps away with itself. Well, that's a bit of an odd pattern it's put on there, but doesn't really matter. sparkly, it's flat. Gone back to an end mill on this because it can cover the whole part, and I can take more accurate cuts with it. And being just an end mill, it's going to have lighter cutting loads, like the tooth loads on it, so it's not going to move the part around, make it spring around that much. I've measured this. The lowest part is 10.29, thinnest part is 10.29, and so I've got to zero it off and take it down by about 0.28, something like that, and then it will get it as close as it needs to be to 10mm thick. Go all over it. Right, so that's quite a nice finished 6mm reamed hole. I'll put a nut and bolt through there. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll bolt the two pieces together, keep them clamped together. But if I lose my centre, then I can come back on that hole and indicate on that if I need to. Yep, that'll do. Yeah, and it did clean up both parts. Sometimes you have to take what the casting throws at you, but it worked out alright. Yeah, 19.04, so this started to get a bit sticky at the end. You try and get it to increase its cut, but yeah, it's also a bit floppy on the end here, but I need it to be that long to get through the whole bore. It'll do, I just need to make the bush the right size. Here we go, two parts machined together. Just need a bit of deburring and countersinking and cleaning up. that top saddle and the two side plates there, pivot arms, whatever you want to call them. It's all pretty much done. Outrigger bearing would go somewhere like this. That would go something like that. And then there'll be bronze bushes either side of there, so that can rock up and down, and this shaft can spin round and round. The distance that I needed, why I needed to make those parts first, was I need to make sure I know what the distance is between these two arms on the inside. Once I know what that distance is, and it should be whatever I made it when I machined these parts, I can subtract the thickness of these outriggers and determine how long that cross bolt needs to be that holds these two legs together. So half finished parts, one feature at a time, gradually coming together. This is the tie bolt that's going to, or stud that's going to tie the two outrigger legs together. This centre portion here needs to be 56.2 to space the outriggers in the correct position. So I've turned down this end to 6mm and a little bit less than 6mm on the end to take a thread. This is just turned down for clearance, that's just a shade under 6mm. So I'm going to turn down to that line, get it to the right dimension, and then creep in on this distance here to get the spacing correct. .2. That drama over with. that cross bolt turned down to the right length, threads on each end, fits in the holes nicely. The reason for leaving that until last was that all this had to be made so that we get this gap just right. There's a little bit of spring on it, but didn't want any slop or floppiness being in this part. It does go all the way down to there, so there's no real binding, it's just a good snug fit. So that when it's on the machine, it's not going to rock about and go side to side and whatnot. By the time it gets the bushes in there, it will hinge down quite nicely. There was a waisted feature on here to bring it down to a smaller waist with some radii at each end. It's just a cosmetic feature, it doesn't do anything, so I'm not going to mess around thinning that bolt out. It's not in the way, it can stay like it is. .90. So if I go to 11.02, because it needs to be a clearance because it's a bearing. Let's see what that does. I mean, as a boring bar, it is pretty sharp. It's pulling off some curly swarf in there. Spot on, 11.02. That is the turning part of it all. Okay, 16.02, and that bore measures 15.99, so it kind of starts going in, but it will end up being a snug, gentle press fit. Yeah, that finished up being quite the press. This has taken quite some fiddling around to get the holes drilled in the base plate, get all this stuff bolted on, trying to get it centered into the base plate and square to it as well. You know, you're trying to square up on cast edges. So these feet, these are secured down to the base. The feet of the motor are secured down to the base on their risers, on their spacers. We've got studs and nuts holding all this stuff on. Main reason for going for studs and nuts is you can get a stronger grip with a stud, because you don't have to thread it into the aluminium castings every time, and it's a bit more robust for the continuous disassembly and reassembling that this is going to go through. But the point of doing such precise work on the feet here and on these feet and on that bore and on these bores here and these pieces was so all of this could go together and line up as it should do. So here's the shaft, not finished yet, another half finished part. That needs to go through these bushes, through the gearbox and out the other side, and it does. It's very, very snug, but it's a shiny polished shaft and I can still turn it with my fingers, so I'd take that as lined up. I'm expecting a bit of stiffness to be going on because you know, it is going to wear and it's going to bed in. When I run this, I'll have lots of checks going on to make sure that things are not overheating as it's running. Good, good. Now that it's in a, it's starting to become assembled. It's starting to look like what it's eventually going to look like. Here's a vise I made earlier. That'll be the vise going on there. That's where that sits, and it's all the rest of the paraphernalia that goes on. But now you can just start building it, adding on one piece at a time. All of this took a lot of making individual parts, so seemingly making no progress, but now it's bolted together. Kind of happy with that. Seems to fit together more smoothly every time it gets pushed in. Good.